I was wiping down the kitchen counter when I heard the ping of a message on my phone. One of those lazy Sunday afternoons when everything felt like it moved at half speed. The kids were at their grandparents' for the weekend, and I was supposed to be enjoying a little quiet. But quiet can be dangerous. Quiet leaves too much room for thoughts to echo. Vanessa, my wife of 11 years, had left that morning for what she said was a family gathering at her mother's. Just a little overnight, she told me while throwing clothes into her overnight bag like she was in a rush to catch a train. Mom needs help with some things. My cousins are coming into town too. It'll be nice. I didn't question it. I rarely questioned her. That was part of the trust we'd built, or at least, the trust one believed we'd built. I wiped my hands, picked up my phone, and glanced at the notification. It was from Instagram, a tag story from Vanessa's mom, Margaret, a woman who adored her camera like most people adore oxygen. She posted everything, from casseroles to her cats. I tapped on the story, expecting some quaint family photo. Maybe a badly lit picture of her living room, or a blurry shot of Vanessa's cousin's new baby. But instead, what I saw knocked the wind out of me. Palm trees, turquoise water, sunlight hitting a cocktail glass on a terrace with an ocean view. And in the corner of the frame, unmistakably, Margaret's wide smile beneath sunglasses, holding up a peace sign. The caption read, "Greetings from Tulum. Never thought I'd make it back here. Love this place, spiral shell tropical drink yellow heart." Tulum, Mexico. I blinked. Wait, what? I went back and watched the story again, slower this time. I checked the timestamp. Posted just an hour ago. I stared at the phone, as if the image might change. As if somehow, the universe had gotten it wrong. Margaret wasn't home. She wasn't hosting a family gathering. She was sipping cocktails on a beach 2,000 miles away. So where the hell was Vanessa? I set the phone down and leaned against the counter, my stomach sinking like it knew something I didn't. I replayed the morning in my mind. Her quick kisses, her loose smile, the way she packed in such a hurry. I remembered her saying, "Don't worry about dinner. I'll be back tomorrow night." But now, every word felt like a puzzle piece hammered into the wrong place. My legs moved on autopilot, carrying me into the bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed where she'd packed her things, now neatly zipped and gone. My fingers reached for her vanity drawer, a place I'd rarely invaded. Lipsticks, brushes, perfume. Everything arranged just so. Except one thing was missing. Her favorite necklace, the one she only wore when she wanted to feel beautiful. Not the quick errands around town type of beautiful, but the watch me walk into a room kind. I stood up and opened her closet. Several dresses were gone, including the black one she hadn't worn in months. The one I always thought made her look like someone else, someone free. The ache in my chest was starting to become physical. I reached for her jewelry box, brushing aside a few earrings, and found it tucked underneath, a folded airline ticket stub. Not unusual, we both traveled for work sometimes. But this one wasn't old. It was dated just 2 weeks ago. LAX to Cancun. Cancun. Not exactly a hotbed for marketing conventions. That's when the alarm bells stopped ringing in the distance and started screaming in my ears. I closed the jewelry box and sat back down, phone in hand. My fingers moved before I could think, pulling up her Instagram. Nothing new. Just a post from 3 days ago, a photo of our cat lying in a sunbeam. But something in me had shifted. Something cold and alert. I checked her texts next. She'd been using my laptop recently to sync her phone, another convenience that now felt like an open door. I scrolled through her messages. Most were normal. Conversations with friends. Work stuff. Grocery lists. Then one thread caught my eye. A number with no name. No photo. Just a string of digits and emojis. It wasn't flirty, exactly. But it wasn't nothing either. Friday, 8:12 p.m. Unknown, can't wait. Same place? Vanessa. Of course, winking face. Saturday, 9:01 a.m. Unknown, room's ready. Come find me. I slammed the laptop shut like it had burned me. My ears rang. I could hear the blood pounding in my head. The unknown number was still fresh. The tone was casual, intimate. Not workplace banter. Not friends. Something else. I walked back to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and stood there letting the cold air hit my face. I didn't know what I was doing, looking for a drink, a distraction, an escape. But all I found was silence. My wife wasn't at her mother's. Her mother was in Tulum. And now, I had the sickening sense that Vanessa was with someone else. that she'd lied to my face with a practiced ease I'd never noticed before. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened the laptop again. My hands were steady now. Too steady. I searched for reverse phone lookup and plugged in the number. No results. Burner phone. Of course. Disposable. Just like the trust she'd thrown away. By nightfall, I was pacing the living room. Shadows stretched across the walls. The sound of the grandfather clock echoed like a countdown. I kept checking my phone for updates, half hoping for another story from Margaret, proof this was all some mix-up. But deep down, I knew. I poured myself a whiskey and sat in the dark, the glow of my phone lighting my face. I stared at the time, 11:42 p.m. She'd been gone almost 15 hours. Then, out of nowhere, her text came through. Vanessa, hey babe. Just got to mom's. Sorry it took so long. Traffic was awful. Going to sleep now. Love you, Red Heart. I stared at the message, numb. My hands didn't move. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because at that exact moment, I opened Instagram again. Margaret had posted a new story. She was dancing under string lights, a margarita in one hand, the Caribbean waves crashing in the distance. My jaw clenched so hard it ached. My heart, however, had gone still. I got up, poured the rest of the whiskey down the sink, and went back to the bedroom. I pulled out the suitcases we hadn't used since last year's vacation, and I started packing. Not for her. For me. I didn't sleep that night. Not in any meaningful way, at least. I closed my eyes, but my brain kept playing that Instagram story on loop. Margaret's carefree laughter, the lilt of salsa music in the background, the impossibly blue water behind her. I had stared at my wife's text just minutes earlier, claiming she was settling into her mother's house for the night. That single sentence, soft, ordinary, now felt like a slow-motion slap. The lie sat in my gut like acid. By morning, I had packed a duffel bag with just enough to get by, clothes, laptop, the spare key to my studio apartment downtown. It wasn't much. Just the place I used to work from before we bought this house together. Back when we were saving, dreaming, building something real. Now it felt like a lifeboat. I left the house with the kind of stillness that comes after a storm. Not rage, not panic, just the cold clarity of someone who's stopped hoping. I drove in silence. No music, no podcasts, just the low hum of the tires against asphalt and the sound of my breath, slow and deliberate, like I was trying not to break. When I reached the studio, I dropped my bag on the floor and sat by the window, watching the city wake up. It was strange. I'd imagined heartbreak would feel like noise, shouting, sobbing, crashing things. But this wasn't that. This was the quiet unraveling of everything I thought I knew. At 9:14 a.m., she texted again. Vanessa, morning, two hearts, mom's making waffles. How's your day looking? It was so normal, so painfully scripted. She even added the damn heart. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't trust myself to say anything that wouldn't burn everything down instantly. Instead, I took a breath and opened my laptop. I needed answers. Not guesses. Not half-truths. Concrete evidence. If I was going to confront her, really confront her, I wasn't walking in blind. First, I checked the phone tracking app we'd installed last year for emergencies. Technically, it was for when she traveled solo. She had insisted I add it just in case. A precaution that now felt ironic. Her phone was in Los Angeles. Specifically, at a boutique hotel in Westwood. I zoomed in on the map. Not her mother's address. Not even remotely close. My jaw tightened as I opened the hotel's website. The front page boasted a rooftop pool, spa packages, and romantic weekend getaways. My stomach churned. I spent the next hour combing through receipts, emails, bank statements. Anything tied to our shared accounts. I hadn't thought to monitor her personal card, the one she kept for private purchases. A holdover from when we first got married and wanted to maintain financial independence. But she slipped. A recent charge, $724.67, appeared from the same hotel. Room service, minibar, and a massage. 2 guests, the receipt noted. I could barely read the words. I sat back in my chair, numb. The sunlight was creeping across the floor like nothing had changed. But everything had. I knew what I had to do. At noon, I drove across town. A friend of mine, Gabe, runs a small but discreet investigative firm. We hadn't spoken in years, not since college. But when I explained the situation, his tone shifted from casual to clinical. I'll get someone there within the hour, he said. Text me her full name, license plate, description. Anything else you have. I sent it all. By evening, I had a file in my inbox. Photos. Dozens of them. Vanessa, walking through the hotel lobby with a man I didn't recognize. Taller than me. Dark suit. Close-cropped hair. The way he looked at her made my skin crawl. Not because he was threatening, but because he looked like he knew her. Like he'd known her for a long time. There was a shot of them at dinner, heads close, laughing. Another of him brushing her hand across the table. The intimacy was unmistakable. Not some casual fling. This was comfort. Familiarity. The last photo was taken just an hour earlier. Vanessa, poolside, lying across a lounge chair. A cocktail in hand. The man was beside her, shirtless, kissing her shoulder. My throat went dry. I sat frozen, unable to move. Not angry. Not even heartbroken anymore. Just hollow. My phone buzzed. It was her. Vanessa. Just got back to mom's. Long day, sleeping face, I'll call you in the morning. I stared at the message. So she was still lying. Still playing the part. I typed back slowly. Me. Everything okay? A beat. Vanessa. Of course. Why do you ask? I didn't respond. I couldn't. Instead, I saved the photos. All of them. Then I started digging into the man's identity. I ran his image through a reverse image search. It took some time, but eventually, I found him. Michael Carr, divorced. Mid-40s. Works in advertising. Lives in Santa Monica. And apparently, has been sleeping with my wife. I leaned back in my chair, trying to breathe. Trying to think. My heart thudded dully in my chest. Each beat heavy with the weight of something irreparable. This wasn't just about a lie. It wasn't just betrayal. It was contempt. Vanessa had looked me in the eyes that morning, kissed me on the cheek, told me she'd be back tomorrow night, all while knowing she'd be half naked with another man by lunch. And she thought I'd never find out. She thought I'd stay quiet, stay dumb, stay blind. She didn't know me. Not really. Not the me I became that night. I didn't call her. I didn't scream. I didn't even send her the photos. Instead, I started planning. I opened my password manager, pulled up every account we shared, utilities, mortgage, bank. I began resetting passwords, locking down cards, redirecting mail. And then I drafted an email. Not to her. To Michael Carr, subject line. Does your boss know about the married woman you've been sleeping with on company time? But I didn't send it. Not yet. No. I needed more. I needed a moment that would leave an impact. Something public. Something unforgettable. Something she couldn't smooth over with a lie. And I had just the occasion in mind. Next Saturday, her sister's engagement party. She'd invited all our friends, our families. She was even making a speech. It would be perfect, but I'd need help. I reached for my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. Hello, a woman's voice answered. Melissa? I said. It's me. Look, I know it's been a long time, but I need a favor, and I need it to be big. There was a pause. Then, tell me everything. Melissa hadn't changed a bit. Same sharp voice. Same dry humor. She was one of those rare people who could cut through the fog in your brain just by existing. We hadn't spoken in over 2 years, not since our falling out over that failed business idea. But when I told her what Vanessa had done, there was no hesitation. She always struck me as someone who thought she could outsmart the world. Melissa said, after a long pause. Guess she finally outsmarted herself. I laughed, a bitter sound. That makes 2 of us. Melissa didn't ask for details. She didn't need them. She said she'd be in town Friday, one day before the engagement party, and she'd handle her part of the plan in person. She asked only one thing. You sure you want to do this? Once it's out there, you can't take it back. I hesitated for a second, then answered with a calm I didn't expect from myself. I want her to feel what I felt. Just once. Click. The call ended, and for the first time since that damn Instagram story, I felt something like resolve begin to take root. The days leading up to the party moved in strange, surreal stretches of time. I went through the motions of work. I replied to texts. I even answered Vanessa's calls. Each time, I listened to her speak, her voice syrupy with lies. I'd nod and murmur, and yeah, I miss you too. She told me she might stay another day at her mother's. Margaret's been a little down, she claimed. I think she just needs some company. I almost laughed out loud. Margaret had posted 4 new stories from a beachfront yoga retreat in Mexico. Vanessa didn't even bother blocking me from viewing them. On Thursday night, She messaged me from what she said was her childhood bedroom. Said she'd call after her bath. 20 minutes later, the tracking app on her phone showed her right back at that boutique hotel in Westwood. I stared at the map, at the dot that refused to move. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I printed the photos Gabe's team had sent me. High quality, matte finish, each one telling a piece of the story she never thought I'd see. I tucked them into a black envelope. On the front, in silver ink, I wrote, "To whom it absolutely concerns." I placed it in the glove box of my car and locked the doors. The next day, Melissa arrived just after noon. I met her at the diner near our old apartment, a nostalgic sort of spot with cracked leather booths and a jukebox that still took quarters. She slid into the seat across from me and looked me up and down. "You look like a man who's been through hell," she said, but in a cinematic, revenge thriller kind of way. I smiled weakly. "Appreciate the compliment." She slid a small USB drive across the table. All the digital stuff's on there. Screenshots, photos, timestamps. The works. I even formatted a few pieces for projection, just in case. I blinked. "Projection? Trust me," she said, sipping her coffee. "You'll want options." We spent the next hour fine-tuning the plan. The engagement party was being held at a rented rooftop venue. Swanky, full of white roses and flowing champagne. The kind of place you book when you want people to remember your night forever. Perfect. Vanessa would be arriving in the early evening, most likely arm in arm with me, thinking everything was normal. She'd planned to give a speech welcoming everyone and toasting her sister. She had no idea the spotlight would shift. Friday evening, I returned home for the first time since I'd left. The house was quiet, frozen in the same position I'd abandoned it. Her scent lingered on the pillows, faint but still there. I went through the rooms like a man rehearsing a goodbye. I didn't cry. I was far beyond tears now. That night, I packed the final piece, a small speaker, synced to my phone, with a playlist that ended with a certain audio file I'd been saving. A voicemail Vanessa had left, meant for Michael, that she accidentally left on our home line instead. It was short, sensual, unmistakable. She whispered his name like it was the answer to a prayer. I had everything I needed. The next day, party day, Vanessa came home around noon. She walked in with 2 bags, smiling, tan, eyes sparkling like she'd just returned from a spa retreat. "Hey, babe," she called out. "God, it's good to be home. I missed you." She walked over and kissed me. I let her. She pulled back and studied my face. "You okay? You look different." I shrugged. "Just tired." She smiled sympathetically. "Well, good news. The dress I bought for tonight is going to blow your mind." She disappeared upstairs, humming. And I stood there, completely still, letting her voice trail into silence. That evening, she came down dressed in an elegant navy gown, hair curled just so, perfume clouding the air around her. She looked beautiful. She looked distant, like a portrait painted by someone who didn't know the subject anymore. "You ready?" she asked, her arm through mine. I nodded. We drove in silence. The venue was exactly as expected. Lights strung above a rooftop garden. Tables dressed in ivory. A small crowd had already gathered, clinking glasses and laughing. Her sister waved us in, eyes gleaming. The first 30 minutes were painless. I made small talk, smiled when I had to, sipped champagne without tasting it. At exactly 7:45 p.m., Vanessa stepped up to the microphone. "Hi everyone," she said, smiling wide. "Thank you all so much for coming to celebrate my beautiful sister's engagement." Applause, laughter, warmth. "And I just want to say how honored I am to have all of you here tonight. It means the world to me and to my family." I stepped forward. Her eyes flicked to me, confused, nervous. "Sorry to interrupt," I said, my voice calm, smooth. "But before you continue, I have a little something to add." The crowd turned toward me. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the remote, and pressed play. At first, it was just white noise. Murmurs. Then her voice, breathy, intimate, unmistakable. "God, I can't wait to feel you again, Michael. Last night was everything." A gasp rippled through the room. Vanessa's face drained of color. "What the hell is this?" But I wasn't finished. A projector flared to life behind her, casting the first image onto the venue wall, Vanessa and Michael, by the pool. Then another, her hand on his chest. Then another, the two of them at dinner, heads touching. Whispers spread like wildfire. I stepped back and spoke into the mic. I just wanted everyone to know that while Vanessa was supposedly helping her mother, she was actually in Westwood with someone else. Not her family, not her friends, just lies. Silence. All eyes on her. And then she dropped the mic literally. It clattered to the ground, her eyes wild, mouth opening and closing, like she couldn't decide whether to scream or cry. She turned toward me, but before she could speak, a hand clapped down on my shoulder. A familiar voice behind me said, "Okay, that's enough. You've made your point." I turned. It was Michael, standing right there, in the crowd. And he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, a child clinging to her leg. "Is that your wife?" I asked. He didn't answer, but her glare said everything. For a second, everything froze. Even the wind seemed to hush as Michael stared at me, his jaw locked tight. The woman beside him, tall, olive-skinned, hair pulled into a tight braid, looked like she'd aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. She wasn't crying. Not yet. But her eyes were glassy and sharp, unblinking. The child, maybe 5 or 6, clung tighter to her leg. Vanessa stammered, "Wait. No, what is this?" Michael's wife didn't move. She didn't even look at Vanessa. Her gaze was fixed on her husband, like she was carving a hole through him with her silence. I felt nothing. No pity. No guilt. Just an eerie calm, like a storm's eye. I dropped the match. The fire would burn on its own now. Vanessa turned to me, her voice a high-pitched whisper. You set this up?" I didn't respond. What was there to say? The projector kept flashing through the photos behind her, one after the next, like some cruel slideshow of the double life she'd lived. The crowd had gone quiet, heads swiveling between Vanessa, Michael, and the woman and child at his side. Vanessa stumbled backward, like her heels suddenly betrayed her. She reached out toward the mic, but I stepped forward and beat her to it. "I think that's enough," I said, voice steady. "This isn't the kind of speech anyone wanted tonight." Vanessa shook her head, dazed. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like." Michael's wife stepped forward. "Don't," she said, her voice flat but clear. "Don't even start." Vanessa's mouth clamped shut. Michael looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. He glanced between the two women in his life, the one who'd wrecked her marriage to be with him and the one he'd betrayed to make it happen. Neither of them looked willing to catch him if he fell. And fall he did. "I didn't want it to go this far," Michael muttered. "It was just supposed to be a few nights. It wasn't real." "You told me you loved me," Vanessa hissed, her face flushing red. "Yeah," he said bitterly. "I told a lot of people things." And with that, Michael turned to his wife, whispering something I couldn't hear. She didn't respond. She simply bent down, picked up the child, and walked away. Michael followed, but not before glancing back at Vanessa one last time. Not with regret. Not with longing. Just a blank, resigned sort of emptiness. That was the moment she truly realized she was alone. The rooftop was still packed, but no one moved. No one spoke. The kind of silence that isn't polite, it's suffocating. People stared at their shoes, at their drinks, anywhere but at her. Vanessa's sister, bless her, made a beeline toward the mic and stammered something about desserts and dancing, trying to salvage what was left. The music started up again, loud, awkward, a blaring contradiction to the tension crackling in the air. Vanessa fled the stage. I didn't follow her. Instead, I walked over to Melissa, who was leaning against the wall, arms folded, eyebrows raised. "You weren't kidding," she murmured. That was something. I didn't expect Michael's wife to show up. She looked like she could burn a building down just by thinking about it. I nodded. "I think Vanessa just realized what she actually threw away." "And what are you going to do now?" Melissa asked. I didn't answer. Not yet. We left the party not long after. I didn't go home. I needed to be somewhere quiet, somewhere I could process the wreckage I had just unleashed. So I returned to the studio. I sat on the floor with the lights off, breathing through the echo in my chest. There was a part of me that wanted to feel proud, vengeful, victorious. But mostly, I just felt hollow. She'd told me she loved me just last week. She'd said it with the same mouth that kissed another man. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Vanessa, please come home. Please. I need to talk to you." I ignored it. 10 minutes later, another. "Vanessa, I'm so sorry. I messed everything up. Please, just let me explain." And then, something strange happened. My phone rang. Not from Vanessa, but from a number I didn't recognize. I picked up. "Hello." A pause. Then, Is this Daniel? Yes. Who is this? I'm Julia, Michael's wife. We met tonight. My body tensed. Right? Yes. What can I do for you? A pause again. Look, she said. I'm sorry to bother you, but I thought maybe you'd want to see this. I frowned. See what? I didn't want to do it at the party. I couldn't. There were too many people. But before I left, I saw your wife go into the catering kitchen, and she wasn't alone. I stood up, blood going cold. Who was she with? She hesitated. You might want to sit down. I'm already standing. She sighed. She was with your brother. The silence that followed was absolute. I hadn't expected that. I hadn't even considered that. What? Your brother? She repeated. The one in the gray suit. He walked her back there. They were arguing. He touched her waist. She didn't stop him. Then they kissed. I didn't get a picture, but I swear I wouldn't lie. I couldn't breathe. Are you sure? I asked, my voice a whisper. I'm sure. I hung up. My hands trembled. My brother. The one who hugged me at the door. The one who said, let me know if you need anything. The one who used to crash on our couch after breakups. And now this. I didn't even feel anger yet. Just a nauseating wave of disorientation. Was this the Real affair? Had I missed the truth entirely? Had Michael just been a distraction? I opened my phone, scrolled through the photos again. Then I looked back at a group photo from earlier that night, the whole family posing under fairy lights. Vanessa and my brother stood shoulder to shoulder, his hand resting on the small of her back. I didn't sleep. Again, that's what betrayal does. It takes your sleep first, then your peace, then your sense of gravity. I sat in the studio, staring at the photo on my phone. My brother's hand on Vanessa's back. That possessive, easy familiarity. My eyes had skimmed over it a dozen times before. But now I couldn't unsee it. And I couldn't ignore Julia's voice echoing in my head. They kissed. I needed confirmation. By sunrise, I was outside my brother's condo. I waited. I didn't call. Didn't text. I just sat there in my car, engine off, cold seeping into my fingers. And then, like it was choreographed by the universe, he walked out. Coffee in hand. Sunglasses. Still dressed in the same suit from the night before. Jacket slung over his shoulder like he'd had a long night. I stepped out and stood directly in his path. He froze. Hey, he said, voice uncertain. Morning, I replied, evenly. Rough night. He gave a half laugh, like he wasn't sure which version of himself to play. I was just heading to cut the crap, I said, stepping closer. How long? He blinked. What? Don't make me repeat it. How long have you and Vanessa been sneaking around behind my back? His jaw worked like he was chewing gravel. It's not what you think. I think you kissed my wife in a catering kitchen while your own family was 20 feet away. His expression crumbled. Damn it, Daniel. I didn't mean for it to happen. It was just once. I said nothing. He swallowed. Months ago. It was a mistake. It wasn't supposed to be anything. We were both drunk. It just happened. But last night, I don't know, it just felt familiar. I said, voice quiet now. Felt like the old rhythm. He rubbed his face. We stopped it. We stopped, okay? You didn't stop it. You just delayed the next opportunity. He looked away. I nodded slowly, the numbness returning. So Michael wasn't the first, I said. He was just the one I caught. My brother didn't argue. I turned and walked away. He didn't follow. By noon, I was back home. Vanessa was in the kitchen, pale and shaking, still in her party dress, crumpled and stained. You said nothing, she whispered when she saw me. You left me there. You humiliated me. I dropped the envelope on the counter. Open it. She hesitated, then pulled out the photos. Her eyes widened. I've already seen them, I said. You don't have to pretend. Tears pooled fast. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I stared at her. Then why did you keep going back? She collapsed onto the stool, sobbing. I don't know. I felt trapped. I felt like I was disappearing. And he made me feel alive again. Which one? I asked. She looked up, startled. Michael? I continued. Or my brother? That stopped her breath. Who told you? Does it matter? She didn't speak. I pressed on. Was it one time, like he said? Or are you juggling whose lie to protect? She stood, arms shaking. It wasn't what you think. We kissed. Once. Years ago. I didn't think it meant anything. But last night, I was scared, and I needed someone. You needed someone, I repeated. So you chose him. I didn't choose anyone, she cried. I was falling apart. No, I said. You made choices. You chose him. You chose Michael. You chose to look me in the eye every day and lie. She walked toward me, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. But I choose you now. I swear. I made mistakes, but I'll do anything. Stop, I said. Don't say mistakes, like you tripped into this. She blinked. I know what it feels like to be betrayed, I said, voice lower now. I lived it. I breathed it. I tasted it every single day while pretending to be your husband. Daniel, do you know how many lies I swallowed just to keep our life afloat? Just to protect the kids? The routine? The illusion? I do, she whispered. I do now. I know what I did. But we can fix this. We can't. Silence. She shook her head. So that's it. I didn't answer. I just walked past her, to the door, where my suitcase still sat from the night before. Where are you going? I picked up the handle. Somewhere I don't have to pretend anymore. Daniel, she said, stepping into my path. Please. We have a life. A family. Let's fight for that. For them. And there it was, the line. The guilt. The plea. But I'd made my choice. You're right, I said. We do have a family. That's why I won't be the one who burns it down. I walked past her. I filed the papers that Monday. In the following weeks, the fallout spread. My brother was excommunicated from family events. Michael lost his job. Vanessa moved in with her sister temporarily. The kids stayed with me. Quietly, without a scene, the world reassembled around the space where my marriage used to be. And me? I started living again. I took long walks with the kids. I returned to work and poured myself into new projects. I saw Melissa often, not in a romantic way, just as someone who remembered me before all of this. The silence in the house no longer felt like a void. It felt like air. I never got an apology, I believed. But I didn't need one. I had something better. Clarity. Months later, I received a letter. From Vanessa. No return address. Inside was a single line. I hope one day you find someone who never has to lie to love you. I folded the note, slipped it into a drawer I no longer opened. And I smiled. Not out of vengeance. Not out of victory. But because, finally, the last lie was hers. Not mine.